Hello everyone, today we will build an anime list application. So here we have the trending animes, and let's say we want to see more about Attack on Titan. And as you can see, we are using the shared element transition API. And here we have a small description and the name, the year, and the rating. We will use MVVM for this. We will fetch this data from the Kitsu API. And you will have the link in the description, and you will also have the repository in the description from which you can get the dependencies and to look at the code. Okay, so let's jump into Android Studio, and we will also use the type-safe navigation. So let's start with the package structure. So we will have a data package and a domain package, okay? And the UI one. In the domain, we will keep the business logic like models, repositories, and in the data, we will keep the network calls, the repository implementations, and databases and so on. We don't have databases here, but like an example. So let's start with the data, and let's create a new package called network. And inside, let's create the Kitsu API, which is our interface. Okay, so before implementing the API, let's go into the network package and create another package called DTO. And this stands for Data Transfer Object. And this will have the API responses as data classes. And this will have multiple additional fields that we want to remove. And that's why we will have another package in the domain called model, and the DTO will be converted in the model, and the model will have all the fields that we need. Let's implement the DTO. So let's create a new file, and let's say trending anime lists DTO, and here we will have all the responses, okay? Response classes. So let's go to Gemini and ask him to convert the response into data classes, and so let's submit. Okay, so he did a good job. Let's copy this and paste them here. Let's rename this to trending anime list DTO response DTO. It's okay. And let's also add DTO after each one. Let's simply rename this with Shift F6 and add DTO. Select all. Oh, he's also renaming the fields. That's not okay because this will cause some bugs. So let's rename this back and let's simply put DTO after them. DTO, titles DTO, poster image DTO, and so on. Okay. I will come back to rename those red things. Okay. Shift, Option, and click or Control click on Windows. Let's say DTO. Okay, same thing here. Size DTO, meta DTO. Okay. Now we can get back to the Kitsu API and let's write the first get function. So we'll start by saying get, and here we will have the path, so trending anime and get trending anime list, and this will return an API response. We are using kind of sandwich dependency, and this will return a list of anime list response DTO. And let's also make the request to get a single anime by an ID. So we simply say anime / ID, and now we say get anime by ID, and we'll have a path, the ID, the parameter name, the ID which is an integer, and we return an API response of anime response DTO, and we will make it here right now. So this is almost the same thing with this one, but it returns a single anime data DTO. Let's go back to the Kitsu API and let's import this class. Okay, now let's go into the domain model and let's create the trending anime list, but this is not a DTO class because these are the models that we actually will use in the application. So let's copy these ones and paste them here. Let's remove these ones because we don't need them anymore. And let's get only the attributes. This is not a DTO anymore. So attributes, from the attributes, we will get rid of these ones. Cover image, poster image. Let's see. Average rating. We don't need the rating frequencies. We don't need also the slug. Popularity rank. Age rating. Okay. Let's remove this too. Episode count. I think we don't need this. Let's remove DTO from here. Titles, we simply keep the English one. And from here we remove the meta because we don't need it. Okay, relationships, we don't need this either. I think we don't need those. Okay. From titles, okay, it's only titles, and we can also remove this. Okay, so these are the models, and let's go into the DTO, in the training anime list DTO, and now let's also remove this because they aren't used, as I see. Okay, and we need to make a new function that will convert this class into this DTO into a data class model that we are using in the application. So let's start with the attributes, or let's take our control button to the top. Those are needed. Okay, with the cover image. So let's say to model, and this will return a cover image equal cover image and pass all the parameters. Let's copy this and replace it with poster image, and let's create a poster image, pass the parameters, and we will do the same thing, all of them. Titles, English. Okay, so for the attributes, I will simply pass the function because it is too long. Cover image, because it's nullable, sorry. The last one is for the anime data DTO. So let's say to a model, return on anime data, which is equal to anime data, and pass the ID and the attributes, which is equal to attributes to model. Okay, let's put this on a new line, and let's go to domain package and create another package called repository. So here we will have an interface like an blueprint that we need to implement in the data package, and it will be an interface called Kitsu repository, and it will have the get trending anime list, and it will return a list of anime data, and we will have the get anime by ID, and it will get an integer, and it will return an anime data, which is nullable. Okay, so let's go into the data package now, and let's implement the Kitsu repository. But firstly, let's create the repository package here, and let's say Kitsu repository implementation, and let's make it a class which implements the Kitsu repository. Let's option click or alt enter on Windows and implement the members. Okay, and now we need to get the API, and let's I forgot to make it a variable, so let's say API dot get anime trending list, and on success say var anime list, which is a list of type anime data, which is an empty list. We'll get the value from the API response. Let's go to the DTO, trending anime list DTO, and this can't return a nullable list of anime data because it can return only a list, an empty list. And now let's say data.data map it to model, and we convert all the items from the list into our anime data, and we simply return the anime list. And for the get anime by ID, we do the same thing. We have an anime data which is null, and the API get anime by ID, pass the ID, and on success we simply get the anime data to model. Okay, and return the anime. Okay, now let's set up Dagger here to get the API from there and also inject this repository to our view models. So let's start by annotating the main activity with Android entry point. Let's also go to anime list app and create a new Kotlin file, and this will be called anime app. This will inherit from the application, and this will be annotated with here algorithm. Okay, and now let's go to the data package. Before that, let's go to the manifest and let's add the application here. So Android name, anime app, and now let's go to the data package and create another package called DI, which stands for dependency injection, and here we will have an app module, and this is an object. So let's annotate this with module and install in singleton component class. Okay, so let's start by creating the API. So firstly, we need to provide a singleton and provide Moshi, and we are using this because this is a JSON adapter that converts JSON classes into Kotlin classes, and retrofit needs Moshi to convert, or you can use another JSON to Kotlin converter like JSON or Jackson or Kotlin serialization. So let's say Moshi and returns Moshi, builder, add Kotlin JSON adapter factory, and let's say build. Now let's say provides singleton on provide Kitsu API, and this will return the Kitsu API interface that we created earlier. And let's say retrofit builder, add converter factory, which is Moshi converter factory, create and pass the Moshi. So Moshi. Now in order to use the sandwich dependency, we need to say add call adapter factory API response call adapter factory, and simply call create. Now let's say base URL. Let's go into Kitsu API and create a companion object. Here we say base URL is equal to this URL. Let's go back to app module and say Kitsu API base URL, call build, and we simply call create and pass the Kitsu API class.java. The last thing we need to provide is the repository. So fun provide Kitsu repository, and this will get the API and return the Kitsu repository. And this is equal to Kitsu repository implementation API, and we can return the Kitsu repository and create this class because this inherits from the Kitsu repository, and basically it's the same thing, but it's the implementation of that repository. Now let's collapse these packages and go into the UI package and create a new package called screen, and here we will have the anime list package, and inside of it we will have trending anime list, and to make this composable trending anime list screen. I will leave this modified because we don't need it. Okay, so let's create the view model. So trending anime list view model, inherit from the view model, and take this with here model, and let's inject in the constructor the repository. So val repository, let's Kitsu repository, and the inject will simply make Dagger Hill to give us the repository. So let's also create an anime list state, and this is equal to var anime list is equal to immutable state flow, and this will be list anime data, and this is an empty list for now. And we also have an anime list. It should be private, and this is anime list as state flow. By using mutable state flow, we will get updates after the API call is completed. So let's go here in the init block and say repository. Let's make this. I think I forgot to make these suspend functions. Okay, so I'm sorry. Suspend, and let's also go to the network Kitsu API, and these are also suspend functions because we are fetching data from the internet, and these are made in the dispatcher IO, not the main dispatcher. Okay, so let's say view model scope launch, and repository get training anime list, and the anime list will be anime list dot update and pass the list here. And in the screen, let's get the view model is equal to Hill view model, and let's say anime list by view model anime list collect a state with lifecycle, so we don't have any problems. Let's start by creating the scaffold, get the inner padding from it, and let's say animated content, and the target state is animalist is empty. Is empty here. Let's also add a label. Let it empty. Oops. I will put this. Okay. And now, if the list is empty, we want to display a loading indicator. So let's make a box and center the indicator. Alignment center, circular progress indicator, and put this on the line. Otherwise, we display the list of animals. So let's say text. Now we say trending anime, and let's make this quite bigger. So let's say a material theme, typography. Let's collapse these, and let's make this display small. Let's also make it bold. Font weight, bold. Now let's create a lazy column to scroll through the animes. So let's put this in an item. Now let's say vertical arrangement spaced by 16, sorry. And content padding would be padding values, horizontal 20 dp, and let's say start and top is 15 dp plus inner padding. Oops. Calculate stop padding, and the bottom is the same thing, but we simply say calculate bottom padding. Okay. Now let's go here and say items, and we will pass the anime list, get the anime, and now let's go into the anime list package and create another package called composable, and here we will have an anime card. Okay, so let's create the anime card. So let's put this along the line. Let's get the anime data on click unit. Now let's open a card, and let's say on click is equal to on click, and pass the modifier. Now we simply say row. Here we create the async image, and this is anime attributes poster image and original. For this null, I forgot that it's nullable. Let's say modifier size is 96 dp. Oops. Let's put this on your line and say clip rounded corner shape is equal to 10 dp. Let's also make this row like vertical alignment, center vertically, horizontal arrangement spaced by 10 dp, and the modifier is padding of 6 dp. Let's also add to the image the content scale, which is crop, in order to fill the whole thing. Okay, so in the right of the image we will have the rating, the title, and synopsis. Okay, let's start with the star, and this will be our icons rounded star on description null. Let's put this separate lines, tint yellow, and rating. Okay, so let's say anime, attributes, and rating, average rating, to string. Let's add question marks. Okay, so in order to make this capsule, let's go here and say modifier background. And let's pass the color, and the shape is rounded corner shape of 30 dp, and in order to have some padding inside, we add a padding here, padding 6 dp, or horizontal is 6 dp, and the vertical is 2 dp. Okay, now let's create a title. So is anywhere dot attributes canonical title to string, and let's make this a little bigger. So let's say style, material, theme, typography, title small, or actually let's make it title Miguel. To display the synopsis, let's also make a text and say anime attributes synopsis to string. Put this on a new line and say overflow is text overflow ellipsis in order to have these dots at the end, and the max line is of 2. Okay, so now let's get back to the anime list and pass the card anime, and the on-click will be implemented after we create the navigation. Before that, let's also create the anime screen, and let's say anime screen, composable anime screen, and let's also create the anime view model, inherit from the view model, make this here to your model, inject the repository to new view models constructor. So while repository to repository, and we will have almost the same thing as the previous view model. So let's copy this and simply paste it here, remove the list, probably a variable name, and this is anywhere which is nullable and passable. And here we will have a function get anime by ID, and get the ID int, view model scope, launch repository, get anime by ID, pass the ID, and let's simply have the anime update and close the bracket here. And now let's get back to the anime screen and say view model is equal to here to view model, and here we will have an ID which is an integer, and the cover image which is a string because it's a URL. We pass the image because otherwise the animation won't complete. I mean, this shared element animation, because it will have to wait for the API request to complete, and shared element transition won't appear. Okay, so let's get the anime. So let's say view model anime collect state with lifecycle, and let's also say launch defect true, so it gets called only a single time. And now we save your model, get anime by ID, pass the ID. Okay, so let's create a lazy column, and let's say modifier max size, and padding bottom is, oh, I forgot to add the scaffold, sorry. Get the inner padding, and we put the padding only to the bottom because let's add this and put plus 10 dp, because if we put the padding to the top, the enable edge to edge won't work because it will have padding, and if we put horizontal padding, the image won't reach the screen border. And now let's start with the image, which is an item, and pass the async image. Let's put this on separate lines and say cover image. The content description is null. Modifier dot fill max width, And now let's say height 300 dp. Now let's say clip rounded corner shape. And in order to simply round these two, we'd say bottom start of 20 dp and bottom end is 20 dp. And now let's go here and say item. And now we will create the rest of the screen. Now let's check if the anime is not null. And now let's create a column and make this modifier padding horizontal 20 dp with a vertical padding of 16. And let's also say fill max with the horizontal alignment is center. Center alignment dot center horizontal. Now let's create a title. So anime attributes canonical title to string. Okay, what's the problem here? Smartcast. And now let's say style, material theme, typography, and it's display small, font weight bold, and the text align is center. Now let's display the year and the rating. So let's make a row and let's start with the year. Text and attributes, start date, split, because it's from the API, it's something like this. Let's say 2024 and so on. And we split them with this one and get the year. Okay, and first to string. Now let's style this, material theme, typography, title medium, and font weight is medium. Now let's display that line in the middle. Let's also add some horizontal padding of 4 dp. Now let's create the star and the rating row, and let's make this horizontal arrangement spaced by 1 dp, and let's also say vertical alignment center vertically. Now let's display the icon. So let's make this null. And let's say icons dot rounded star. Implement this and put this on separate lines. Now let's say modifier padding at the end of 4 dp, and let's also display the average rating. So anime attributes rating, average rating to string. Now let's put this on a new line, style. Let's copy this and paste them here. Now let's go down here and say spacer height 16 dp. And now let's create the synopsis. So let's say column of the horizontal alignment to start. And now let's say text, synopsis, style, material theme, typography, title large, and the font weight is bold. Okay, with this all on your line. And let's also display the synopsis. So let's say anime attributes synopsis to string. Okay, so now let's go to the main activity, and I already enabled edge to edge, but I have to say system bar style dot dark, and we simply say Android X color, Android graphics color and transparent. Now let's create the nav controller, and let's say remember nav controller, and let's set up the navigation. So nav host is nav controller, and now we will use the type save navigation. So we simply can create a data object called trending anime route and annotate this with serializable. And now let's pass this here, so trending anime route, and let's make the first screen trending anime route and pass the trending anime list screen. Okay, and the second screen is the anime, so serializable data class, and for this one we need the anime route, we need the ID of that anime and the cover image, which is a nullable string. And let's create a composable anime route, and to get the arguments we simply say args it.toRoute and pass the type. And now let's say anime screen, pass the args.id and args cover image to string. Now let's put this on separate lines. Okay, and now in order to have the transition, so that's this transition, we need to use the shared element transition, and to do that let's wrap this with shared transition layout, and let's opt in for the main activity. And now let's go to the trending anime list screen, and let's also get the on click, or let's say on anime click, and it will have a string and an integer, and with the return rating, so it's a unit, and make this a shared transition scope and opt for it. Okay, so this screen will be used only in the shared transition layout. Okay, so let's go down here and let's say on anime click, pass the cover attributes cover image and anime.id, pass original to string. Oh, okay, I haven't made them nullable, that's why. So let's make this nullable. The cover image is already nullable, args ID, and this is it. Okay, here. And now it should be okay, so from string to int. Okay, and now let's also go to the anime card and make this a shared transition scope only. Let's opt in for this. Let's get the animated visibility scope, and let's go here, and in the modifier let's say shared element. Remember shared content state, the key is the anime.id. Let's put this on a line, and animated visibility scope, and let's make this an empty string. And let's get back to the trending anime lists screen, and let's also get the animated visibility scope and pass it here. So animated visibility scope, and now let's go back to the main activity, say on anime click, and the animated visibility is this, because the composable already gives us the scope. Now let's say nav controller navigate, and we simply create the anime route and pass the ID. Let's get this from here, and ID and cover image is cover. Okay, so let's copy this and paste it here. Let's go to the anime screen and get the animated visibility scope. Oops, I forgot to make it on shared transition scope only, and opt in for that. Shared element is, remember, shared content state anime.id, or I simply can say the ID. The highlighted visibility scope is visibility scope. And now let's go back to the main activity. Okay, and we have an error here, so let's go here, and it is because I forgot to add the suspend here. Okay, I got an error, and it is because I made this nullable, and let's also make this a string, and pass it here like this and like this on string 2 and simply convert it here to int. And let's remove this thing and pass to string here to string, and I think we should be okay with them. Okay, and I noticed that I put the cover image instead of the poster image. It was a complete different image. And another thing I noticed is that I forgot to add a content scale here, so it's crop. And now I think it should be okay. Okay, so now let's pick Attack on Titan and everything works well. Oh, I forgot to add the circular indicator. So on the anime screen, let's collapse the lazy column and say box modifier fill max size content alignment is center, and add a circular progress indicator only if the anime is null. Let's run the app again, and now it should. So let's wait a couple of seconds. Attack on Titan, as you can see, the circle appears. And if you like this video, make sure to subscribe and like this video for more content like this.